Tammy Goff was last seen at her home in the 2100 block of 7th Avenue North in July of 2018. She was seen driving to the south end of Great Falls with her dog. The dog was found the next day, but Goff is still missing.
Bob and Tammy have been married for 42 years, high school sweethearts. And for the last 3 years, Bob has been looking for Tammy. Bob's entire family's been looking for Tammy. And the clues that we had to go on was that Tammy left the home around 7:30 in the morning. And when she did so, she took her best friend with her. And her best friend is Sadie, her dog. Later on throughout the day, on that Friday, Sadie was spotted over the course of the next 2 or 3 miles, heading back towards town.
According to GFPD, there are no new updates in the case. Amanda Goff, Tammy's daughter-in-law, told MTN it's a hard day for the entire family. At this point, we're just praying and hoping for some type of closure, whatever that may be.
I want to introduce you to Bob. Bob, thank you for bringing us into your home.
Well, thank you for coming, man. I really super appreciate your assistance here.
Yeah. Meeting Bob last night, it's almost like coming home already. Like Bob and I, we've been hanging out for years, and we're just getting together for, a family reunion. And it's like, let's just go hit the river and enjoy our day. A few things we're going to talk with you, today as well is the different phases that you've gone through. In fact, I'm going to let you tell your story now. I'm going to quit rambling on and let's just kind of jump into it and tell us about it.
I have my wife and I had been married for almost 42 years when she just left one day. I talk in weeks, so it's been 146 weeks ago. We're in Great Falls, Montana, the Missouri River, not too far away, the headwaters here, and but I've had very little interaction with the river except for just, driving across bridges, looking at water and such. We both just had really love for the river. Had our dog that we'd had for many years just passed away now last December, but that was a big part of our life, was walking along the river. But I never boated, never understood the dynamics of the river. And probably something that I had mentioned before when I started boating on it and interacting with it is that, just kind of thinking about why I was there, that I'm searching for my wife possibly being in a truck underneath the water, that it had its enjoyable experiences on there then, but the different family members, the different people that have helped me in the boat, we've been kind of learning together on how to do this. It is a hard thing. It is a hard thing to be in the boat and thinking about what you're actually doing and how you're going to react possibly to someday when we would actually find something, but not a day goes by that you're not thinking about possibilities, what happened, we've the day that she left, we've had just pretty much like zero clues on what happened. OnStar in the car was a failure. The cell phone pings didn't turn out anything. Financial records didn't turn out anything, so it's been very frustrating to say the least onto that. It was like the day that I finally decided to call the police that, hey, my wife's missing, that you would, as I'm sure with most people, that you would just say that, well, the Army's getting called out, hey, call the police, they're going to take over, do all these wonderful things. And cold reality is that doesn't really happen. There's a lot of, if what I knew now that I knew then, those first 48 hours would have been a lot different on being more proactive on my end of things, and just instead of just thinking that the police were going to take care of all these things.
And then what happened, with law enforcement once you did so, and did you sit on, was it just like, hey Bob, don't worry about it, we're on the case now, right. Sit back and we got this, and then nothing happens? Or take us down that route for you.
Yeah, the last time I saw her was probably like 8 o'clock in the morning. Was very common thing for her to take the dog out for a walk, come over to our second house, the house we inherited from my father, and take care of the cat and such like that. So no big deal there then. And then, I called 45 minutes later, the phone rang, but no answer. Another 45 minutes goes by, no answer, call, and then just like the phone shut off, then it goes right to voicemail. Start calling sisters, start calling friends. That's just that very, unnerving time to try to make a decision. Hey, is this something serious? And then when I finally, in the afternoon, called the police, then it was, it's kind of like this. Okay, they're going to come over, they're going to investigate, they're going to look at all these things. First of all, if it's an adult missing, there's no real crime been committed, so there's I wouldn't say there's like a less emphasis put on it, but that if I would know more about calling cell phone, trying to access cell phones and doing some of these things initially, that and trying to decide if there was actually a crime. The police never, even at this facility, never came over and talked to the neighbors, never took pictures, those kind of things.
From the time that you last saw her at your house to when you reported her missing, same day or?
Oh yeah. It was
how many hours?
like 8 o'clock, roughly 8 o'clock she went missing. It was about 3:30 or so when I finally called the police and just said, hey, we've looked all over, can't find my wife, so roughly 7 hours or so, 7 or 8 hours. That you still just kind of, like with me, it was like you don't want to believe that something's happened, that it's just kind of, that this going to show up. Hey, I don't want to bother the police type thing, but then at some certain point to where you just have exhausted all your own possibilities of, something being someplace. I don't know. It's hard to explain that. At what point you make that decision, to call the authorities. You call looking for that support, and then you have that sense or feeling like you're a suspect, kind of right off the bat. And then just the more you look at these kind of missing person cases, certainly the spouse is, if there is some foul play, the spouse is kind of the number one suspect into there. So there's a lot of, you get kind of, I got kind of like angry or frustrated with law enforcement, and then you start looking back at their point of view, that they're, they can't divulge so much information. They got to treat you as a suspect until, you're not like innocent until proven guilty. They got to kind of go, maybe what I got that sense was the guilty and proved innocent, through all this. So it took, I'd say it's been well over a year before they just kind of, okay, this is a family matter. This isn't, a homicide or something, But I still don't believe in that something didn't, something criminal couldn't have happened to my wife, that, she didn't accidentally or, otherwise go into the river, into a ravine, had a self-inflicted accident of some kind. So we just don't know. That's the worst part about all that, is just not knowing. Not knowing what happened. The first 2 weeks after she was gone was by far the hardest 2 weeks. Those first 2 weeks after she was missing was by far the hardest 2 weeks, because I just felt that, at that point she's injured someplace, needs to be found, rescued, whatever. And then, after 2 weeks, you just kind of, you're somewhat settled into, hey, we just gotta find her. But it became easier. And then, now, 2.5 years later, it's still, hard to talk about it out loud, but it does help, to just talk about it. And I appreciate, even like with this, even to think that she is possibly dead right now. It was well over a year before I could say that. We got 5 grandchildren, 2 sons, wonderful family, and there's just no way that she would have just left and and left all that behind without saying something, you know. So something bad has happened. Either she's gone or she's incapacitated somehow and doesn't know, you know, who she is or her family. But you know, that is I can't say that that's a 100% possibility, but you know, it just that wouldn't be my wife. You know, she wouldn't just leave all this and go away. You know, this is Mouse the cat. She looks like she's a kitten, you know, but she was like 16 years old and still had, you know, zero gray or anything to her. Never left the house, you know, was always in the house. It was just that kind of that age, didn't go to the vet or anything. So when I came over to the house looking for Tammy, the cat was gone.
The cat lived alone. Like your dad does not live here, you know. So your
Correct,
your
yeah,
father's
right.
has already passed away.
Yeah, my dad got sick and went into the extended care. She was very happy just living here on her own.
And so how long had the cat lived here in a house by herself
yeah,
with Tammy coming over to check on?
Well, you mean, yeah, without my dad being
Yeah.
here? Yeah, several, I don't know exactly how long, but several years.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, for me to come over and not see Mouse, initially it was like, I'm kind of looking underneath the bed, you know, I didn't know exactly where she hid at, you know, but it wasn't like totally like the sirens going off that I couldn't find Mouse initially, but it was like later in the day, come back still, you know, put some food out, the food hasn't been disturbed, you know, it's like, well, Mouse must not be here, you know, and hard to just, or for me anyway, to just, you know, call the police and say, you know, and then it'd be like a false alarm, and you know, why'd you call the police, you know, that type of thing. So that was, at least on my part, you know, why there was a delay.
With this, you know, it's always a tough thing because we never want to, you know, believe that our loved one would do that, you know. But the best thing for all of this, you know, in our discussion, it would be like, yes, this was nothing more than an accident. Mm-hmm. But then we have the reality that we were talking about last night is, you know, Tammy attempted, you know, suicide years earlier. And
that's just always been such a you know, don't talk about that, you know, we don't want to have that out in the media. We don't want to talk about suicide. It's the dark secret that you know, a lot of families hold. And but the reality is that's you know, that's a strong possibility that Tammy had suffered with you know, depression and anxiety and things for pretty much her whole life. You know, I've told the rest of the family, you know, hey, we're all in this little club that nobody wants to be in of surviving families of somebody that might have you know, taken their own life or disappeared, you know, without a trace, never wanting to be found. It is something that needs to be talked about. It's not a, you know, it's not a shameful act. We all cope with it in different ways, whether you're, you know, my two sons, I don't think I can forgive Mom for this. They just thought that this was something that she did out of spite for them, but no, this was an act of love. That's what happened, you know, on Tammy's part. You're married to somebody for 42 years, you go through their ups and downs, and Tammy had extremes of both. I've never been mad at her for what she did. I understand what and why. I just can't say 100% that I know what had happened, but I know what she was capable of that day. And this searching that myself and the family have been doing in the river is just based off of some past history, and that this is our, you know, our gut feeling as far as our family, that this is where she's at, and it's just been a struggle to do that. But there's zero proof that, you know, besides our gut feeling that she's in the river, you know, and but this is the only way we got to look until, you know, somebody else would actually come forward and say otherwise. As time goes on, the hope that she's going to pull up in the driveway in her pickup start fading away, and then the hope is that we, you know, someday at least find out what the heck happened. I'll never stop loving her.
But let's go down the road of, you know, just our own experience with this. You know, we get called out, you know, to come help families, you know, and like you said, this is like that dark secret that, you know, families just don't want to talk about. And we appreciate you opening up. And so we're looking at this two ways, you know, was this an accident, or, you know, again, you know, we have past history of attempting to take, Tammy taking her life as well. And so,
Yeah, so the similarities were so close in that, we had family coming home for events, and whether it was a combination of some kind of anxiety, Tammy just didn't deal with anxiety. The word was when back in 2010, and she had attempted to take her own life at that time, that it was family was on the road coming home, and that afterwards, talking to her about that, is that, why did you pick this particular day? And it was that, well, I didn't want you to be alone. I wanted you to have family, with you when you found me. The thing about like suicide is that people think it's a very selfish thing. Somebody's doing that and just doing it out of being, it's all about me. I'm going to do this for me. I just can't deal with this. But she did it out of love for the family. She had definitely had, issues going on, major issues physically, some mental stuff going on, and that she had seen these issues with her mom, with my stepmom, decided that she didn't want to burden. But that's the thing that I really would want to discuss about was, a suicide, is that, this whole thing of not, going away and not creating a burden on the family is bogus. Your family's never gonna, just say, oh, thank God that grandma's gone, or mom's gone, or sister's gone. So please, just talk it out, get some, take your medications, take your, go to your therapy, work it out. But, suicide is not the answer, so. Okay. So Cascade County map, and we just, we just with our different brainstorming onto this, that we've kind of, we've tried to look for, again, this haunting statement of, I found this place in the river where I could drive my truck into and nobody'd ever find me. It's fairly undaunting, even within Cascade County. We probably got, 60 miles of river, that we would have to look for this. So it's like, how do you break this down into, the places to go? So it was access to the river, and it was depth of the water, that could actually.
Okay, so this is your home.
Correct.
All right. That's
where we're at right now. Yeah, correct.
Okay.
And then Tammy would not only what we talked about on her regular times of going out in the morning with the going to feed mouse and going to take Sadie for a walk. She also spent a lot of time at the cemetery, visiting with her mom and dad's grave, and that was also south of town, and it was very convenient coming from this location where we're at to go by the cemetery. So anyway, then we got the yellow pins are cell phone pings, where they kind of located this, where we talked about that there was a ping down along the river. And then the red dots are, here's the, so on that Thursday, that same Thursday, we had a landowner that said that he saw Sadie in his yard on Thursday afternoon at this location. Then on Friday, then we had a landowner that saw Sadie at very first light at this location.
So this is Thursday, this is Friday.
Thursday and Friday,
okay.
Yeah, kind of the confirmed things. And then on Friday we had several sightings of her. There's a road that runs along this east side of the river here that she ran down, visited, playing with dogs in people's yards, running down the middle of the road, and then got down to this location and then swam the river. And this is roughly 5 miles here between this pin and this pin. And this is where she ended up with on this side of the river the next day. And then these green pins are just some of these are our potential areas that we would like to have you help with us look that are still kind of our hot spots.
Now you recently sent me your newest picture that you sent me. Where was that one from? Which pin is that?
This area right over here, just outside of home.
And the one that I'm talking to, and we'll pop this up big on screen, but Doug, this is what we're talking about on that one with the, the shape of here kind of sitting there. In my opinion, I don't feel like it's a vehicle of any sort, but again, I wasn't in your boat, I wasn't using your sonar, I don't know the direction. So what I'm more interested in though is, normally there, it's usually a 5 mile radius from home. This takes us, 10 miles away, but we have Sadie. That's my biggest thing that I'm seeing in all this is Sadie in this area.
Mm-hmm. This is a boat launch area that Tammy and I had been to together. That we did. It's a rough boat launch. It's not someplace that I could actually. The people will launch like kayaks and jet ski type trailers in, but it would be something that would be perfect or very easy for you to access with your equipment. So, but then this location, my daughter-in-law grew up on the river, and it's still we've spotted quite a few things in that area right into there. They call that area Dead Man's Curve. They looked for a vehicle in there at one time and pulled 6 vehicles out. It's kind of like something that would be kind of like up your alley.
And so Dead Man's Curve, now we're looking at the accident scenario.
Right. Well, or this. I found this place.
Mm-hmm.
It's still again where this unusual statement that she made, and it was just something that the daughter-in-law that grew up on the river had just always felt that was something that. She had never heard the comment, but that it would be like this is something that you need to really look at.
My gut right here is telling me, I think the dog is the big, key in all this.
Right. And then it was whether
you have a boat launch here, but regardless of who scanned it before, I've not scanned it.
Correct.
Same thing with this. Although they've scanned that one, I've not scanned it.
Right.
And between those two, where the dog was found, where the dog was first seen, where it was seen the next morning, multiple times along here.
The truck's got to be here, and we talked a little bit of that last night. We had a person that just said, we were thinking that Sadie swam the river due to her going across to look for her dog friends at her house. And a fellow said, well, what makes you think she didn't swim the river because your wife's car is, your wife's in the vehicle is there. That's why we were scanning that area then. So it's and it just happened to be on a curve in the road, and there was some questionable tire tracks that were upriver from it. So all things were pointing towards that, and we were very, very hopeful we were onto something. And it ended up being another vehicle that had been in the water for 11 years, and so it's that nobody had discovered.
And so that's going to be another hot spot for us, knowing that a vehicle has gone off there before as well.
Right.
And even though they scanned it, maybe they didn't scan far enough. Like,
right. Yeah.
A vehicle is going to float.
Sure.
Or,
Exactly.
maybe, with this being a lighter 4-door, Doug's a tow guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lighter 4-door. We could get, an extra longer float out of this that maybe they just weren't searching far enough. Let's quit talking about it and let's get on the water, Bob.
Great. Certainly.
This location that we're at is the first pin drop that was of interest to Bob. Now, what I'm not seeing here, just based upon the aerial here, is I'm not actually seeing a way for a vehicle to drive off into the water here. Unless we have like maybe this one here. The great thing about this drone is, look, we can actually see the bottom of the river here because we have the polarizing filter on it, and we actually have some water clarity in there. But let's get the boat pumped up and in and go see what we can find. Where we just pulled the RV up to over here, it looked like it had a bunch of posts there.
Yeah, so you can't launch a boat there. That's what that is.
Or a vehicle.
Yeah, a vehicle.
But right here, you guys have suspected that possibly, you can get a vehicle between these two trees right here.
Mm-hmm. And we figured it'd go out about 45, 50 feet, drift 200 or 300 feet pickup would go over like this and drift down, and that's just about where we found the magnetic hit or the on the object on the fish finder.
And what did you guys, I mean, and by magnetic hit, just what you've seen on sonar only, you've not put a magnet on it, or you have put a magnet in the water as well?
See, when we first started, I went and bought these magnets because I didn't know how to read a fish finder, and neither did Bob.
Okay.
So that was our biggest weakness. So we studied all winter this time, and we about 3 foot apart. And this is like a
So in 2019 is when you got with Bob, and or 18?
2019.
Okay. And you feel like the tree branches were broken a year earlier? Is what they kind of lined up with based upon your previous investigation with the sheriff's office?
Because I went out to Big Bend 30 or 40 times, and then it was obvious after I did some more planning with this, and I think we come out here and took a look.
I mean, that drops quick too.
Yeah. I think this is 18 feet or 9 feet. I don't know.
And when you guys scanned it, it's 11 to 15 feet in this area where you found the anomaly. Yeah, if you guys want to be the, if we identify it as a vehicle, let's put you guys in the water.
So the buoy's right there. The target should just be just a little bit in front of it.
More towards the river.
Yeah, towards the river side though, not the bank.
So right now, to show everybody what it is that we're looking at and how we read this, is this one right here is our side imaging. Right now we're casting 50 feet to the left and 50 feet to the right. Anything that you see where the boat is at, down is the black water column, is from the boat to the bottom of the river. And so you'll see it's 8 feet, and if you look at like these lines, 12 feet, 24, 36, 50, so we're looking at, you know, as this goes up, 9 feet, you'll see how that moved a little bit. So that's 8.5 feet, 9 feet deep right here. Now we're hitting a deeper hole. So you see the deeper hole, and it got deeper, now it's getting shallower again. So up and down and up and down. Now this one here is our down imaging. So this one goes straight down from the boat, and so here's the top of the boat, here's down to the river bottom. So that's down imaging. This one over here is what we call our live scope. So these two are a picture in time. This is what we've just passed over. This is what we've just passed over. Whereas this one is live. So any fish that you see swimming in here, any targets, we'll actually be able to see those in real time. So we're gonna head back up to the buoy and see if it shows up on live scope and where it shows up on side imaging and down imaging. Between the three of them, we're able to identify whether we have a vehicle in here or not. There's the buoy. Right there. Nothing's showing up on sonar yet. So that's a tree log is what that is. It's not a vehicle. And you can tell by like all the branches that are in here. So we're going to stop this and scroll up and zoom in. And so you can see the tree shadows and the branches coming off of here. So that one like curves up. That one just goes straight across. With the shadows coming behind it, because we were over here in the middle. So think of it like a flashlight and shadows. We were hitting it from this angle, and these are all the shadows behind it from the tree stump. So every occasion that we went over it, each time 100% it was a tree.
Oh, a tree.
Yeah. So
what was our magnet? You know, but I mean that's what it is. I mean, it's.
Well, we've had magnets get stuck on tree limbs before.
Right, yeah,
and stuff
exactly.
before. I mean, unless it actually brings up a metal chunk.
Well, you know, I mean, it was promising. You know, something promising.
Yeah, so we were able to hit, like I said, we hit it, you know, 4 or 5 times, and each time it was definitely a tree every time.
You know, and again, we're just trying to look for wishful thinking on some of this. But that's I don't know if there's any, you know, if you'd want to scan any more down back.
100%. We have not scanned this at all, and so we're going to take our time, and we're going to clear this entire area for where we feel like the vehicle could have traveled to.
Yeah, so here's what we're seeing. We're actually right here. And going back to the map that we were looking at earlier, this is where we are at right now. There was a dog sighting here, also here on this side of the river, and then just around this bend over there, the dog was spotted actually on the other side of the river. So we just put in right here, and then just right around here is where we should start seeing, you know, where the dog was put in at. So, you know, this here could very well be a, you know, a spot that somebody could go in at.
Well, you know, and Bob says that he's cleared this spot. Well, he says that he's scanned the spot at least 30 times. But again, we go back to, we've not scanned it, so let's put the boat in, let's scan it. One thing that I'm already seeing, I mean, I'm just seeing how shallow it already is right here. dropped off right about there. I mean, of course you have like boat tracks that you have.
Yeah.
So I'm really not banking on a vehicle being right here.
No.
Let's scan this real quick with the boat, but then let's look at additional access points between here and where the dog was at, and I think we're just gonna have to run the next 5 miles on the river. So with this area right now, it's been about 2.5 hours or so since we last spoke to you. With this one, we've covered a little more than half of the distance from Ground Zero where we put in. We're heading up to Dead Man's Bend. Along the way, we're gonna stop off, we're gonna meet up with Bob as to where the Tahoe was at. One of the things about this area that we're really searching here is, you know, it is 6.5 feet is what it is right here next to the road. So, you know, if you watched our stuff, you know, we always look at the accident theories in this because we've ran into where like people thought foul play or suicide and it ended up being nothing more than an accident. So we're still, you know, within distance between where the dog was spotted and where the dog swam the river. We're kind of midpoint between that right now with the road right along the river. So with that one, we're gonna keep scanning, we're gonna keep searching, and we're gonna keep you updated. So first of 3 ramps here, Sam. So 1, 2, and then one by the marina, and then one past the marina. And then I guess there's a hole that everything just floats into. So yeah, down where the guardrail is at, where that yellow sign is at, they just kind of float into there, which makes perfect sense coming in from here. And this is that storage unit that's not locked.
Covered a lot though. You have great vision.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, I'm confident that between Ground Zero and here, there was only one section up by, was it Larry's or what his name is? There was only that section where there was like a pile of rocks. And there's like a castle house up there.
Everything else is like what, sand?
Everything else is sand. Yeah, I mean, you can tell there's nothing. It's smooth like this. You know, like this is not sandy. This is, you know, sand mixed with some rocks in here. Mm-hmm. But for sand, it's like you won't see any of these at all. And that's what it was coming through all that river today.
Yeah.
You know, here it is. I mean, it's 4 o'clock now, and we put in at Ground Zero at 12:30 today. Well, I say that we just keep running this road then towards the house. I mean, the river towards the house. We still have, you know, 3-4 hours of daylight. Just keep it going. With that one, we really appreciate you being here with us today. You know, if you've not already done so, please do subscribe because it really helps out the YouTube algorithm and everything that we're doing, you know, to come out here and help these families. Make sure you leave a comment and all that good stuff. With that one, we're not done. We're going to continue with the day 2, and we're going to have that link down below for you to check out as well. So thanks for being here with us, and we'll see you tomorrow on day 2. Later. Bye.
5 grandchildren, 2 sons, you know, wonderful family. Say 100% that I know what had happened, but I know what she was capable of that day.
Tammy Goff has been missing since July 12, 2018. But despite 1 year since she was last seen leaving her home in Great Falls, police say there are no new updates in the case. Goff left her home driving a 2008 black Chevrolet Colorado. Goff was likely headed towards the south end of Great Falls to the Falls. Goff was found later, but Goff wasn't since her disappearance.
The search continues.